Hello brain shakers, welcome to this episode where we're going to be looking at the functions of the renal system, or rather the kidneys, and the structures that are related to the kidney. Now, it is important for the body to be in a state of balance. Why? Because when there's too much of everything, then it means that consequences will then arise. If there's too little of everything, then it means still consequences are going to arise. Now, in order for the body to function correctly and to be in a state of harmony, the kidney now comes to play a key role in creating that balance. And that is why we're going to be looking at some of those functions of the renal system. Now, we can remember the functions of the renal system by a simple acronym where we can say a wet bed. So this is going to be very helpful for us to then understand some of the functions of the renal system. So we have already done an understanding or a brief introduction of what the renal system is all about. Now, the A here is going to be an acid-base balance. So because we are talking about being able to maintain homeostasis, which is a state of balance for the body or the human body to actually function correctly and also to survive, you need to create an acid-base balance. Now, what are we talking about when we're talking about an acid-base balance? This is the amount of acid that is within the body has to be regulated so that you don't go into a case which we call acidosis. The body is consistently producing these hydrogen ions, and those hydrogen ions, if they are too much in the body, then they'll take you into a state of acidosis. So you need a base, which is hydroxy ions, that would then come in and neutralize these acids so that you are at least in a state of balance. And the blood itself, you do not want the blood to be in a pH that is too low because you are in an acidic state, or too high because it will be alkalotic at that state. So you want to try and maintain the pH of blood at least around a 7.4. So that is where now the renal system comes in to play a role by making sure that it is getting rid of those hydrogen ions that make the blood more acidic, and making sure that there is adequate water as well that is going to make sure that these hydrogen ions that are there are well regulated. So it creates an acid-base balance. Now, I look at the state of acidosis and alkalosis as well in a new video, and so make sure you look up for that video as well, so that you understand how the kidneys then perform this main function of acid-base balance. But what is important to note is that when they are performing the role of acid-base balance, all the kidneys are trying to do is to maintain that blood pH around 7.4. Then you will have water balance. Okay, so the kidneys are very important in creating a balance in how much fluid is going to be in your circulatory system and how much fluid is there in your body. And that is why majority of the urine that you pass there is going to be in fluid form, and it contains more of that percentage is going to be more of the water in there, because it has within the kidneys structures that have the capacity to reabsorb the water and take it back into circulation. When your blood pressure or your circulatory volume is low, then it will drain that water and not allow it to come to the ureter for excretion, meaning that your urine now becomes more concentrated. And when you have plenty of that fluid within your circulatory system, it will get rid of that excess water, and then your urine now becomes more dilute. And then you have what we can refer to as electrolyte balance. So electrolyte balance, you have a number of electrolytes there that the kidney is going to get rid of, and some of the electrolytes that it is going to keep, because those electrolytes are also needed for the functioning of the body in other systems. So you have electrolytes such as sodium, you also have calcium there, you will have magnesium, you will have chloride ions as well that are there within the system. So the body is then going to detect whether it has too much of those electrolytes, then meaning that it will allow some of those electrolytes to then pass and be excreted in urine. If it has too little, then it is going to withhold and reabsorb those electrolytes. In most cases, these other electrolytes are needed, especially electrolytes such as sodium and calcium. You may need them also for muscle contraction. So these electrolytes, when they are then filtered within the nephron and they are part of the urine that has been collected as a filtrate, they will still be reabsorbed. Majority of them will still be reabsorbed, especially in the ascending loop of Henle there. That is where they are going to be more absorbed, because it is more permeable to electrolytes than it is more permeable to water. So it maintains the levels of these electrolytes within your circulatory system as well. And then you will have the removal of toxins. So the body actually collects a lot of toxins, and you also have drugs that you are going to, so toxins removal. When you take a drug and then the drugs within the system and the body have already done their function, and you have excess drugs that have then been worked on by the liver, the excess of those drugs, they will be gotten rid of the system through the renal system. When you're talking also of toxins, think of poisons as well. If you consume anything that is not required by the body, it will then be eliminated through the renal system. When the body produces elements or waste products, waste materials out of the metabolism and the catabolism reactions that happen within the body, the excess materials that are not required, such as urea, will then be gotten rid of the body through the renal system. So the kidney plays a key role in removing all the toxins within your body, and then will get rid of those drugs. And you may think of certain drugs that you have taken, and even when you go to pass urine, you can actually smell the drug itself. It is because it is getting rid of the excess after the metabolism of that drug. Then the other function is the function that we're going to call the blood pressure control. So the kidneys are responsible for the regulation of blood pressure. Now, how do the kidneys then regulate your blood pressure? So we know that the blood pressure is going to come out of the circulatory volume. Now, the kidneys here are important in making sure that you either lose water or you retain the fluid within the system. Now, if the circulatory volume is very low, it means that the kidney's role is going to be to reabsorb that water. So the water is then going to be reabsorbed and taken back into the circulatory system. That then increases the blood volume. So when you increase the blood volume, the consequences of increasing the blood volume now will be a raise in the blood pressure. And if the blood pressure is also too high, it means that the body will then start getting rid of the blood volume, so that you have very little cardiac workload, and then in turn reduce the blood pressure. So it works to regulate the blood pressure with other structures like the adrenal gland, where you have aldosterone as well. Now, we look at blood pressure control when we look at the RAS system, which is the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone pathway, and I look at that in more detail so you completely understand how the blood pressure is going to be regulated by the renal system. So make sure you are following and make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel so that you don't miss that. That is about blood pressure regulation. So your blood pressure is then going to be controlled by the kidneys, and most of the drugs that we're going to be giving, they will come in and target the kidneys in order for the kidneys to play a role to then control your blood pressure. So we'll look at all that when we look at the control of the blood pressure. Then we have another E here, which we can actually say erythropoietin production. Okay, now erythropoietin. So erythropoietin is a hormone that is important in the process of blood cells production, especially the red blood cells, through the process of erythropoiesis. Now, this erythropoietin is produced by interstitial peritubular cells. Within the renal cortex here, you're going to find special cells here that will then give you the erythropoietin or the EPO. This is an important element when it comes to the production of those red blood cells through the process of erythropoiesis. And importantly also, lastly but not the least, you have vitamin D metabolism. So you have vitamin D metabolism also coming in from the renal system, and the most active ingredient of vitamin D is what is going to be produced, which is calcitriol. Now we know vitamin D also plays a key role in making sure that your bones also are nicely functional and that they are of the right integrity. And so these basically are some of the functions of the renal system. And when you look at the renal system, it plays a key role in just maintaining the homeostasis and making sure that the body is actually functioning correctly and that the body also learns to survive by striking a balance between too high and too low, so that everything is brought into a state of equilibrium, and then you continue to survive. So it continues to eliminate things that we no longer need and continues to retain and reabsorb elements that are important for the functioning of the body. Now, those are some of the functions of the renal system, and you can remember them as a wet bed. Now, if you found this particular video helpful in understanding some of the functions of the renal system and the kidneys at large, then don't hesitate to give it a thumbs up. Drop me comments in the comments section, and make sure you're following me on Facebook as the Brain Shakers Academy, and make sure you go on all the way to YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and do not forget to turn that notifications button on so you don't miss any of this amazing content. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.